Hi, this is Mark Littleton, the minister of the Word for the Athens Church of Christ, with today's 3-minute sermon. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, the Apostle Peter writes, "So put away all malice and all deceit and hypocrisy and envy and slander. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, that by it you may grow up into salvation, if indeed you've tasted that the Lord is good." Peter is writing to Christians who were exiles. They were living in a place that was not their home, physically and spiritually. Sometimes as Christians, we live in a world that is a very hostile place to our faith. We live in a world that is ultimately not our home. So what will help us to live in that type of world? Well, Peter tells us in these verses we just read that the Word of God is crucial if we're going to live with hope as exiles in a world that is not our home. Peter says in verse 1, there are some attitudes and some actions that, quite frankly, we need to put away from us if the Word of God is going to have its full impact in our lives. He mentions a few of those things like malice and deceit and hypocrisy and envy and slander. Those things, he says, don't need to be a part of your life if the Word of God is going to have its full effect in your life. So put those things away. And then he says in verse 2, like a newborn baby longs for milk, you need to long for the Word of God. Most of us have experience with how newborn babies long for milk, right? And Peter says that's the same hunger and longing that we ought to have for the Word of God. My friend, do you feel that way about the Word of God? Do you long to feed on it just as much as that baby does that bottle? And then I love what he says in verse 3. He says, all of this you know is a reality in your life if you have tasted that the Lord is good. See, here's the reality. When you taste the goodness of the Lord, you're going to want to feed on His Word. You're not going to be satisfied with just a small taste. You're going to want more and more and more of His Word. So here's my challenge to you today. How are you feeding on the Word of God, especially if you're a Christ follower? How is the Word of God a reality daily in your life? I don't know what it'll look like in your schedule, but let me challenge you. Make time to be in the Word of God on a regular daily basis. Feed on that spiritual milk of that Word. And Peter says you will grow up into salvation. If you're a follower of Jesus, you'll grow to be more like Jesus. And that's the ultimate goal. Hope you have a blessed day. Lord willing, we will see you again on Monday for another 3-minute sermon. God bless.